Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dial the Gate. My name is David Reed. Thank you so much for joining. We have Tony Amendola with us once again. Tony started off the show for us October of 2020. And he is back once again to update us on what he's been up to and share a couple more Master Braid Tech memories. But before we really get into that, if you like Stargate and you want to see more content like this on YouTube, it would mean a great deal if you click that like button. It makes a real difference with YouTube's algorithm and will definitely help the show continue to grow its audience. And if you wouldn't mind, please also consider sharing this video with a Stargate friend. And if you want to get subscribed to future episodes, consider clicking on that subscribe icon. And giving the bell icon a click will notify you the moment a new video drops, and you'll get my notifications of any last-minute guest changes. And clips from this live stream will be released over the course of the next few days on the gateworld.net YouTube channel. As this is a live show, Tony is with me here, and we have the ability as fans to submit questions to him via youtube.com/dialthegate. In the chat window, which is running while the show is going, the moderators are there to take in the questions and pass them along to me. And I'm glad you were with us. I am especially grateful to have Tony Amendola, Master Braid Tech, back once again for the show. Sir, it is a pleasure to have you again, and it just warms my heart to be able to sit with you here and catch up and see that you're doing good, and that there are some things still right with this world.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure to join you, David. And we have unfinished business, so we had to complete this, and it certainly is a strange time, but there is light out there too. So
I've been catching up on some of your credits. How have you been keeping busy, and what's new?
Surprisingly, considering most things sort of closed down for a good number of months, I've been reasonably busy. I'm trying to think. So I probably shortly after we last spoke, I did a Christmas movie called Christmas Again for Disney, which we shot in Chicago, which was marvelous, except I couldn't really visit very much. So I ended up walking around quite a bit in November, but it was glorious. I got trapped there for Thanksgiving, but it all worked out very well. The people were very nice and they took good care of us.
Oh, good.
But and then sort of returned back to LA. I'm trying to think what else. Did a little bit of television, and then I've been working on this piece that is being edited right now, which is called Rough Magic. And a friend of mine wrote it, and it's about Shakespeare late in his life. It's a one-person show, and it's about Shakespeare at, just before he returns to Stratford. He hasn't written Tempest, and he's struggling with the form, with the, everyone knows comedies and tragedies, but there was a form at the end of his career called the romance. Cymbeline, Pericles, Winter's Tale, and Tempest. And it's just before he wrote The Tempest. So, and that was a big effort. So it's about a 45-minute piece, which we filmed. And
you are Shakespeare.
Yeah. So that kept me very busy. And luckily, the director, Andy Wolk, who co-wrote it as well. And it was, there was that. And then in the midst of all that, I got this, talking about going from a Christmas movie, which is Christmas Again, is that your typical Christmas movie blended with Groundhog Day. So it's a retelling of the same event through the eyes of a little girl, a young girl, probably about 12 or so. And all of a sudden, so you go from that. And I did this project with a writer named Dennis Lehane, who wrote, Gone Baby Gone and Mystic River. So it's a heavy piece set based on a book called In with the Devil.
Oh,
which is it takes place in prison, and we shot it in Louisiana, and that was, it's a miniseries, not a film. It's a I believe a 6-part miniseries on. It's going to be on Apple TV probably in the spring.
okay.
And I did 3 of those episodes in a very, very different sort of character than certainly it was in the Christmas movie, and I'm trying to think what else.
Is that caged?
Also,
Would that have been caged?
You mean, oh no, Cage. Oh no, Cage. Oh yeah, Cage is another prison film. Yeah, I play a warden in that one. Cage, that we shot actually in, believe it or not, we shot Caged in 2016.
Oh, okay. So
it's
been gestating for a while.
Yeah, meaning meaning they needed more money to complete it.
Got it.
but it's a very intense but interesting little film for people that don't mind prison claustrophobia.
Right.
It's about the madness of solitary confinement within prison, and I play this warden who is oddly sort of forward thinking. And probably the last thing, and there are probably some other things I haven't really thought about, but the last thing is something that's coming out February 14th on Valentine's Day on Audible, and it's called Numbered Days.
Numbered Days.
Numbered Days. And again, it's an intense friend of mine, Corey Madden, who's a producer and a poet and a writer. She was in a wonderful relationship and lost a husband. And because she's an artist, she documented that experience through poetry, and her, with the husband saying, okay, we need, and so it's the story of their journey until, from when he was diagnosed to when eventually he died. And it's, as I say, but it's a beautiful, beautiful poetry and quite beautiful story. He was a composer, a very well-known composer, sort of in the area, and avant-garde music and film, etc., and theater. And anyway, Anna Gunn is in it. I don't know, from she plays Corey's surrogate, and I play the husband. And there's 2 other, Jeannie Cicada and Jack Stedland are in it. And it's, that's going to drop on the 14th. So, it's funny, because as an actor, you think, God, I'm not busy. And then you look back and you say, no, actually you were really busy. And that's sort of what I've been doing. I've been, keeping myself healthy and doing a lot of hiking in the area over in Griffith Park, which I live close to.
Oh, yes. That's a good hike.
Yeah. Well, and, there's a great book called 33 Hikes in Griffith Park.
Oh.
And we've done all of them.
Wow.
Everything
I can believe there's 33. Yeah.
Oh, well, and that's not everything from like a half hour to like 5 hours at an 8 mile over all the peaks. And it was it's fantastic. I have a buddy who I call the goat, because he just, I'm saying, really? He says, no, it's not far. And that was like an hour and a half ago. Anyway, that was a long answer to your question, but I'm well, and I hope everyone who's listening is well.
When we last spoke, I didn't get a chance to talk with you about, at least based on my record here of the document of review when we talked, Jedi Fallen Order. You were Jedi Master Eno Cordova.
That's
right. It was a delight is not the right word. I was ecstatic to see you on my screen when I'm playing through this game, because it was like it was a perfect casting. And I'm still tickled that you were in that, because I think that it's one of the greatest Star Wars games of the last, of the last 10 years. What a performance. That was cool.
It was great fun, because I like Star Wars. It was, probably, one of the earlier introductions, to that sort of franchise. And I'd like to believe in a small way, because I've done Stargate, obviously, Babylon 5, Star Trek, that I was missing Star Wars, and I was able to sort of, to do all four.
Not to mention Terminator and a lot of these other brilliant sci-fi.
And Terminator, a guy I hadn't even thought of. Oh my God! Thank you.
Opposite the great Cersei Lannister herself.
Oh my God!
Oh man!
Yes, yeah. And she was so marvelous. She was so, yeah. It's always interesting when you work, with people closely who are then eventually,
ascend,
go on to
stratospheric. Yeah.
Right. I'll give you another guy. I did a film, a wonderful film called Lone Star, which is about Texas and about relations at the border, et cetera. And all my shooting was with Chris Cooper. Chris Cooper hadn't won the Academy Award yet, and all my stuff was with him. And so it's a very different day when there's just two of you. You just sort of sit down and and this is pre-cell phones and getting lost in tablets. So there's so many. I remember doing an episode for those fans of Desperate Housewives. I fell in love with Marcia Cross in an episode of The Raven, before, and Terry Hatcher, actually another one.
Yes,
Lois and Clark. Well, Terry Hatcher, I didn't work with her in Lois and Clark. I worked with her in Seinfeld.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting. It's a small world.
Seinfeld, another great one with that scene with you and Michael Richards in the sauna.
Oh my God. Yeah. And also, for me, it was a delight because I don't get a chance, an opportunity to do much sitcoms. So when they come across and they come along, it's really choice. And that one being one of the ultimate sitcoms, to me, it was a sitcom that genuinely made me laugh consistently. And then recently I got a chance to do Will and Grace.
I saw
just
this.
Before. Yeah. Which again is a very funny. And strangely, I did God, there is coming back. Forgive me.
No, you're fine.
There's a reboot of iCarly.
Oh, they're restarting it.
They did. It's in
I didn't hear about this.
Oh, okay. Because all the people now are in their 20s, right?
Okay, so they're doing like a Girl Meets World kind of.
Yes, yeah, and I got a chance to do an episode of that, and again, it was great fun, particularly in COVID. You're sort of doing, trying to do, a sitcom with your mask. So, but they take good care of us. We're tested, 3 times a week, and they treat it very seriously, as they should.
What's this Prophet in E minor that I'm seeing?
Oh, Prophet in E minor is a script that a person has been trying to develop for a long time.
Okay.
It's a very, very strange script. And I'm still sort of attached to it. Whether it will happen, I don't know.
Understood.
At this point, sometimes at this point, I sort of doubt it. It's been a while.
IMDb is always nebulous that way, so you can never be too sure.
Well, it's funny. I need to go on. IMDb Pro and change. There are some errors in my, which I won't point out. But it's so strange that because I'm thinking, how come other people can post stuff about me?
Right? Don't I have some control over my list?
Well, it was funny. One of the fringe benefits of doing Christmas Again was that, I finally just said, okay, Tony, because you need to get your little check mark on Twitter. For the longest time, I never had it because, I'm old. So I never, and finally I was doing PR for them and stuff. And I said, can you vouch for me?
Right.
Vouch that I am who I am. And it was done in 24 hours,
Yeah. When it happens fast. I've heard.
Yeah. Somebody from Disney just goes beep, 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 and it's done.
Correct.
Meanwhile, I'm trying to prove I exist,
Exactly. Right. I am the Tony Amendola. You've seen me on television, please.
Yeah. It's funny.
Christopher Judge. You spent most of your time with him on Stargate SG-1. I am privileged to have gotten to know him. He's one of the most honest, most generous people I've ever known. Tell me about working with Chris and watching him grow as a man over 10 years. Now more since. because you've I mean, I can attest we've caught up with him.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, what can I say about Chris? He's the whole package. He's sort of, great intelligence, great warmth, great hunger for life and joy and participation of life, very welcoming, extremely bright. I've told this story many times, when I first got the role, I knew everything was sort of it was going to be about this other guy. As an actor, you often don't want to make the role about yourself. Mm-hmm. It's a trick. You want to make it about the people that are important to you. So you get you out of yourself and you're concerned what's going on with them, just like a family or something, if you will. So when I arrived on set the first day, all I was interested is, who is this guy, Christopher Judge, who's playing Tilk, and I asked an AD, and he says he's right there. And I'll never forget, they were shooting a scene, and the team was sort of further away in front of a structure, and Richard was, closer to me, not very close, but closer. And they said, "Oh, that's him." So they were on a quick break, and I remember, I knew who Richard was. I knew how important he was. It wasn't that, but all I was interested in meeting Chris. And when I walked by, I could see like Richard's face, like, "What? I thought you were here to meet me."
Right. Executive producer, star of the show,
Probably a smart thing to do.
Right.
Probably a much smarter thing to do. But, I'm, so I went over and met Chris and Amanda and Michael. And then came back to Richard, and we had a wonderful time. And in many ways, in hindsight, that was a great dynamic between Richard and myself, because that was our dynamic. Everything was about this, this guy, Chris Judge, and these other people, and who are they? And they're watching your back and all those things. So it worked out really well. But Chris, I have nothing. I don't know if you know it, but occasionally actors can complain, just a little bit. And what I always admired about Chris is that he took his hunger for different things to happen to his character, and what he wanted to see on the show. And as opposed to just simply pitching it week after week, and eventually the writers closing the door, someone made the mistake of saying, "Well, you write it then," and he did. And I am one of the beneficiaries of that, and I always, he was such a cut up in many ways. And I've told those stories. I don't have that many, but that he never directed. He never directed, to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain.
Definitely not Stargate.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I think he was, so much fun and so, sort of wild and fun, that he knew he was going to be on the other end of that. The crew, everyone would have given him a jolly tough time, And I think he thought, maybe I won't do that. But anyway, he's, it's been a while.
It's interesting that you say, you tell the story of how you passed Rick up the first time and then came back around to him. It's very similar to the reaction on screen that Braytak gives O'Neill. And through the next several episodes, Braytak kind of looks at O'Neill as human,
Human, yeah.
Teal'c's sidekick.
That's right. Yeah.
It's funny to watch that play out over the course of the first couple of episodes. Would you please stop calling me human?
That's right.
I'm the guy of this team.
Yeah.
And it worked. And it just played into the characters
perfectly, and it played into Richard's take on the character, as opposed to Kurt Russell.
Correct.
Which you really can't sustain for the number of seasons. That would have been a very different sort of thing. And people will ask, did you know it was a recurring part? Did you know anything? No. And it was all, I think, about the chemistry in a kind of way. And they realized, I think, oh my God, look at that. We could, because the very next thing they had me do. The very next time you saw me after that first episode, I walk in, I have the
helmet,
serpent helmet on, and the first thing I do is hit Richard in the face. That's the first thing, which
it's not a coincidence.
Yeah, I mean, it was this. I guess that was the second. It was the second season, right? Or was the third?
Second, the premiere of the second season.
Yeah, the premiere of the second season. So consequently, I think the audience was waiting for that. So many people told me it's their favorite moment, one of their favorite moments, I should say.
Sci-Fi Fan 21 wanted to know any particular director that you enjoyed working with the most, or any particular moments with directors that really come out to you over, looking back over the body of work.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I like working with Peter DeLuise a lot, and the reason I like working with him is that he was a fun set. He was sort of a wild guy. Him and Chris. Oh my God, this is just too much male. Just too much. And but what I particularly loved about Peter is that if you were in a jam, meaning when I say in a jam, that you got a choice to make. Character can go this, that way, that way, and instinctually you don't quite know, and you're sitting on the fence. You can go to Peter and tell him to cut all the bull.
Yeah,
and he can help you as an actor because he is an actor.
Correct.
And he's an actor who has the benefit of knowing the lenses and knowing the whole and knowing what's going to play. Something, could play very well on stage or something, but all of a sudden how it plays in a box is very, very different. So I really liked him. Another guy I really liked was, this is another series, a guy named Mike Vehar, who did a lot of Babylon 5 and a lot of Star Trek. And I had done an episode of Babylon 5 Crusade, which is one of my favorite episodes of sci-fi. And then little did I know he was the director on an episode of Voyager I did, and he was very good.
I loved the Muse. I wish your part was bigger in the Muse, because it's an episode that is fundamentally everything about what science fiction is about. Some people say it's a little on the nose, but I think that it's exemplary of what the genre is, and as players in a group, you have an opportunity to influence someone who has authority and may be responsible for people living or dying,
Absolutely.
It was so cool.
Absolutely. And wonderful concept, and entertainment / art as a way of keeping people busy from the slaughter that they can fall into, war and genocide, any of the other things.
Anything.
Yeah. So that was, and it was John Schuck and myself. So we were all part of a Greek chorus, and the center of it really was the writer, the actor who played the writer, and it was a very interesting, beautiful set too, I thought. And so, what else? I'm trying to think. Who were some of the other directors? It's interesting with directors, because as actors, somehow there's many theories about why people become actors. Many theories, and but there is a sense of an actor that it's hard to, for lack of a better term, stamp your own passport. That you always need sort of an outside eye to say, oh, this is good and bad. And of course, you're at the mercy of taste, which makes it's not scientific. It's not as if, your role 2 + 2 will always be 4. Your role 2 + 2 is 4 to one person, 6 to another, and 1, so it's always a matter of taste. But we think that somehow someone's got a missing piece that will make us all fall into place. And we will then be like a science experiment. It will always be the same. We will always be good.
Yeah, you'll have arrived.
It doesn't work there. We will have arrived.
Yeah.
So consequently, I did, in this Lone Star film, it's a filmmaker named John Sayles who's quite a popular filmmaker, called Seven, Brother from Another Planet. I don't know if you've ever seen that film, The Brother from Another Planet. Oh, you should check
It sounds good.
Oh, yeah. I'm Joe Morton.
Okay. All right.
Check that film out.
Okay.
You'll be surprised. And Mate One and many other films. So consequently, I got a chance to work with him in this Lone Star. So I thought, oh my God, this is great. It's sort of like he would do a film a year like Woody Allen did. Back in the 70s and 80s, he would do, and he was earning his money ghostwriting, for like Piranha or some other. So he would direct and edit everything himself, write, direct, and edit. And this film, Chris Christopherson, Chris Cooper, just a bunch of people. And so I thought, oh my God, this is it. And I walked on set and I did my work, and he never said a word to me. Never said. He gave me one note, one little note about it. Oh, he'd say it this way. And had I been a very young actor, it would have freaked me out in a kind of way, like, oh, and then I realized, no, he's happy with what I'm doing. He's not going
to micromanage you. He's going to stay out of your way.
And as many of the great directors will tell you, it's 90% casting. That their job is done after they cast the thing. And then the other 10% is reining the actor or actress in or asking them to expand it, one of the two, but it's in the casting. And that was very interesting. So obviously the opportunity to work with John Sayles, to work with Martin Campbell in The Two Zorros, that was very, very important to my career. Ted Demme, who unfortunately died in Blow. There's been a lot that have, but it was always interesting to see who I did do. Here's the opposite. I did an episode of a short-lived series, Robert Urich, I believe it was, called Lazarus Man. It's a wonderful idea. It's set during, it was a cowboyish thing, set during the Lincoln administration out west, and there was an assassin, et cetera. And the guy, I got hired, and I went to Santa Fe, and it was fantastic. Santa Fe couldn't have been nicer in the fall, hardly any tourists, and just exquisite place. And this guy, I don't know why, sometimes they do it to guest stars because they can't talk to the regular actors. The regular actors have been doing the role for a while, so the guest stars, the directors feel like they have to prove themselves with the guest stars. So
they're the whipping boys.
They're the whipping boys. It wasn't like that.
I know, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Enough, but you know what I mean. And so, but you want to think, hey, I'm here to work. Let's have fun. Tell me what you got.
Yeah. And
you could, with each note he gave me, it got worse and worse. And I knew it was worse. And it got worse. And it got worse. And finally, at the, after going around about an hour, and I'm saying, I'm here for you. He says, please, would you do me a favor? I said, what? I said, I know. What do you want? He says, can you do it the way you were doing it when you came in? I said, yes, I'd be happy to.
I was wrong.
It's that great thing. You probably have heard the Shatner thing, right? The Shatner thing where the voiceover audition.
Oh yeah, he's like,
where the guy
you tell me exactly how you want me to do it. Yes. I will repeat it.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't as difficult as Shatner, and I thought Shatner was absolutely right. Because you get people saying ridiculous things to you sometimes. There's a great film with Sam Elliott where it's about a father-son voiceover people, and Sam Elliott is doing rivers and baked beans, the best in the West. Yeah. Would you give us another just to try something different? Rivers and baked beans, the best in the West. Yeah. Maybe make it deeper. Rivers and baked beans, the best. And there's the ridiculousness of sometimes you get it right quickly. And your best thing you can do as a director and actor is just say, okay, we didn't have to struggle with that. Look at that.
Yeah.
Look at that. But people won't let it go sometimes. It's like the director in a play, and I've had many of these. I've had ones who they do the day's work, and if it's 3:00 and you're supposed to finish at 4, they send you home. because they've done the day's work.
They've hit it. They know when you've got it, you hopefully if you have any competence, you've got it. But I imagine there's some people who are like, I think I do, but I want to play a little bit, especially if we have a little bit of time. I want to make sure I've got it. That's how I would feel. You know?
Yeah. And I can understand that. One take, two takes. But I mean, you look at, Clint Eastwood is a prime example from the friends I have who have worked with him. I mean, the actors can hardly keep up. He shoots all the rehearsals often.
Right.
So,
that's true.
And he does it, particularly last rehearsal, he does it purposely because he knows all of a sudden when they say, okay, we're going to film this one, that it changes something. Correct. The actor can still play when it's in rehearsal. But as soon as you say, oh, we're going to film someone, it sort of tightens just a little bit. It's, anyway.
You heard what Christopher Lee had to say about Peter Jackson, right?
No,
Peter Jackson was the worst, perhaps, because he was doing Saruman, and he was at the 10th or 11th take, and Peter was like, okay, let's go again, and Christopher Lee was like, I think I've got it. I think I've really got it. But Peter wanted that word up, that word down, that word this way, and he talked with Sir Ian Holm a few weeks later. He's like, well, I did like 27 takes and before Peter found what some directors just want it exactly, and they won't tell the actor just to say it this way because it's not appropriate. You are a vessel for the material.
That's right. I'm surprised Ian Holm didn't say only 27.
Right.
Really? Only 27. Bastard. He had me do 40.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. It's interesting. But I read something recently that if only it were easy, only were easy to follow this logo and or this vision of life, and which is nothing is permanent, nothing is perfect, and nothing is personal. Good luck. But there's a lot of wisdom in that.
Yeah.
Meaning, when to say, okay, I'm going to get myself out of the way because I want to work with this guy or this woman, and I'm just going to, because sometimes actors can snap a little bit. We can, and that can be creative. Like I remember I was doing something recently, and luckily the director was a friend of mine. But the director's trying to fill the day,
correct,
and he's got a time schedule. So I was doing a take, and he was looking at his watch, and I said, "Whoa." Now, very nicely, I didn't, how dare you, and everything, but it's not conducive to the work we're doing here. I know you got to make your day, but don't look at your watch during takes.
Right.
You should be looking at us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this was someone that you already had established a relationship with.
Yeah. And he knew. And Frank, and it was a group of people that knew each other. So it was a good laugh.
Yeah.
It was a good laugh. But, the other alternative is the actor has to eat that. And it's sort of, it becomes one more sort of thing. I often say, there's a number of things you can, if you ever hear of actors being difficult or being it's right. Because, there's a lot of stuff they carry over a number of years that is done to them or disrespect that is shown to them. So sometimes it can manifest itself after the fact. And it just was a way of getting rid of that. I just didn't want in the back of my mind every time I worked as director to see him the second time looking at his watch, see him that, and then all of a sudden have something that was serious.
Yeah.
I said, no, don't look at your watch. So I don't ask much of you. I'm here. Right. I got my lines. I'm ready to work. All I'm asking is you watch the work, which seems to be part of your job. It was great.
Wouldn't know otherwise if something was wrong, if you're not paying any attention.
Yeah, it made us closer, actually, in many ways. It's funny,
that's solid.
Forgive me, because I know we're not talking as much about Stargate, but I have to tell you, I got to tell you a great story about the actor always assumes that, that you want to keep in the good graces of people at any cost, even at being silent. I was here, it was a long time ago, but and one day I had two auditions, one for The Practice, which became a long-running series, and one for an episode called The Visitor. Do you remember this series? Excuse me, a series called The Visitors. It was John Corbett.
Vaguely. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And it was the same day. And, I must have been in the zone that day. I got one, then I got the other.
Wow.
Right. And the agent said, okay, let me try and work this out. Let me try. And she tried, but the dates couldn't work and they could just, okay. She calls me, you got to choose. I chose the role. The practice wasn't the practice at the time. I chose what was a better role. On the practice, it was a doctor, on a courtroom. And on The Visitor, I played a guy who was based on Haley Bop. Remember that Suicide Pact?
Oh, yes. Yeah. The religious group. Okay.
Yes, that's who I played. And so I did it. Well, my agent calls me back and says, oh, man, they're angry at you over the practice. And I felt bad because I knew the casting person was a friend from the theater days in San Francisco. Yeah. So I felt bad. And I thought, oh, this is terrible. But what am I going to do? So I spoke to her. Yeah. So what I did is I got the address. I wrote him a note saying, look, no one was trying to play any games. I was trying to make both things work. I just chose. If you ever are in a jam, I would be happy to do whatever it is to come and help out. Just know me. You have me in your back pocket. I owe you one. And that's all I did. Well, 10 days later, I got an audition again for the practice. So I'm thinking to myself, but I'm thinking this guy wants to have the final word, possibly. He wants me to drive all the way to Manhattan Beach and reject
and pull the plug.
And pull the plug. But I'm thinking, okay, that's fine. I go in, I do my audition. I'm prepared. It's not particularly great, but it's very well prepared.
Same people from last time.
Same people.
Okay. Same crew.
Same producers.
Okay.
A different director, different episode, but everybody same casting person. I'm on my way out. He says, hey, hold on a second. I say, what? He said, thank you for the letter. I say, you're welcome. I leave. Don't know if he got the job. Anyway, he hires me again. Not only that, he hires me 3 more times. Now, here we went. It's the lesson of you're better off them really angry at you, meaning the powers that be who can hire you, having them really angry at you so they can say, hey, look what a great guy he's turned into now. Or look, hey, what a nice woman she is now, than being anonymous. Mm-hmm. So
you made an impression.
I made an impression. And now, so, we cut to later on, I'm on set doing it because I did 4 different episodes. Right. And I'm on set and he comes down, he's talking to me and he's got, we're buddies now. And I think that's so strange because I thought, oh, well, that's a bridge that's burned and now we're buddies.
You're turning a disadvantage into an advantage.
Absolutely.
I had 2 years ago, I was working on a project and long of the short, I sent a message to Jenny, my producer, who's been on the show, complaining about the issues that I have with the project. And I sent it to the producer instead. I screwed up. 5 minutes go by, nothing. I write her back and I say, if you want to pull me from the project, I completely understand. She said, no, it's okay. I said, can we call? Can we talk on the phone? I called her. She was cool about it. I wasn't mean or anything. I was voicing my concerns.
Okay.
We are working together to this day.
There you go.
So we understood because it was one of those situations where we understood where each other was coming from. Didn't have to agree, but we were honest about it and human to human. And it turns itself into all kinds of opportunities. It can also blow itself to hell. But
it can. Yeah, it's it's like that last one. Nothing is personal, but for an actor, how can you take it anything but personal? Because it's not like we're going, and we leave an iPhone and say, David, let me know what you think about this iPhone, whether you want to buy it or not. Right. And then we leave and we go home to our kids or whatever. You have to look us in the eye, talking about my body, my voice, my intellect, my talent.
A piece of
so
you.
It's hard. Yeah, it's quite hard, and. It's who was I reading? Oh God, what's her name? Oh, she was a woman that was an older character person talking about that, and she finally had great success in her late 50s, which is very rare. And she was talking about, again, of having the courage of her convictions and belief in herself and not being beaten. It's not like she didn't work, but it was hard. It was hard. I always say, it's hard for men as they get older and nearly impossible for women as they get older. It's my experience.
It's the truth.
But, yeah. It's getting better, though.
Yes,
it is getting better.
Long way to go.
Long way to go.
Tracy wanted to know, and I'm curious myself, Tony. I would love to read a project that you had written. Have you considered writing or finding a writing partner and putting something out? I would love to.
Yeah, I occasionally for the independence and for the control, I would love to do that. But I think in part it's because I've had the benefit to work on such great material that it pains me so much to go through the process of it not being good, which all the writers do. You know what I mean? Thank you. I'd have to think about it. And but if you work closely enough, like even this Shakespeare thing. I mean, my name is not on there as a writing credit, but I certainly had an effect on the script. Suggestions. No, this sonnet is better than that sonnet for this reason. And so who knows? Anything is possible.
I'd like to plant a seed. I'm sure it's one that's probably been planted before. And we've brought up Audible. I would love to read an autobiography.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah. Cliff Simon, we lost him.
Yeah.
And, but he has Paris Nights, My Time at the Moulin Rouge.
Incredible.
And it is
incredible.
A great read and a great listen.
Yeah.
And,
he recorded it on Audible.
It's on Audible.
He with him recording it?
Uh-huh.
Did he? Oh, yeah. I didn't realize that.
I treasure it immensely.
Oh, wow. Yeah. It's funny because, you work with Cliff, and we were there a bunch, and then we'd find ourselves at conventions and hook up and just catch up. And he was such an interesting guy. What an interesting life.
Uh-huh.
Oh my
military,
God.
dancer.
Military, dancer. Yeah. He's and what was so tragic, he finally found a strange combination of his profession and his love as an actor and his even greater sort of thing in terms of outdoor sports and in terms of challenges and extreme sports. Mm-hmm. And he finally found that documentary he was doing, and I thought, oh my God, there it is, Chris. I mean, there it is, Cliff, you found it. Yeah, there it is, Cliff, you found it. My God, and he told me, I saw him, I forget, at a convention just before it was going to come out or just there were some clips I saw of it. And he said, he said, this is it. This is all I want to do. If I could do this, I don't need to act. I would but I don't, this is great. Because he was always in some place thinking, God, are you crazy? Are you nuts to be in that swamp or to be in that, but that was him. He was, we're all searching for sort of a release of endorphins and adrenaline, which, depending upon your point of view of the experience, can either be very frightening or very stimulating. I often say actors, when we get depressed because we're not working, particularly theater actors, even more than film and television, it's because what we're missing, it's a kind of chemical withdrawal. We're literally missing the chemicals that are released every night at 8:00 before we step on the stage.
Right, exactly. Tom Macbeth told me once, if I'm not frightened, it's not worth doing.
Yeah. So he found that, and so he was lucky to have found that,
Absolutely. Yeah. So if Stargate comes back, are you definitely, and someone were to call you and say, hey, or Christopher, are you definitely considering it?
I am not going to do it if Christopher's on it. Okay, he gets me into too much trouble. No, of course, no. Of course, I would definitely be involved if they asked. So.
Absolutely. Akos said, Braytek called Teal'c his son in season 10. I thought that scene was a lovely capstone for the two. And, were it never to come back in any other form, that's a solid arc.
Oh, yes.
When was the first time you felt that this emotional statement, this connection between Braytek and Teal'c was really making sense? I mean, there's a great episode like Threshold, where, Brad Wright, we've talked about that before. He used every scene.
Every bit of, yeah.
There's some good stuff.
It was always there.
Yeah.
But probably if you really had to, it would be the episode on the beach where he was sharing a symbiote.
The Changeling.
Yes, that is the most intimate connection. In a kind of way,
for a Jaffa,
yeah. So it was there. I mean, it was always sort of felt, particularly as I sort of pulled away from the warrior aspect, and they made me as much a diplomat and stuff. So it was, I'd say the Changeling. Yeah.
There's a scene from that episode. That when you guys were coming home. After that scene, and you guys were trying to figure out, okay, are we coming back for another season? Can you tell that story real quick?
Oh, I love this. To tell that story? You love that stuff. Okay, yeah, okay. We were shooting over by the Fraser River, which is close to the airport, and we were waiting for the light, what they call magic light. So it's getting towards sunset. A glow and everything, and there were tons and tons of extras, and they had cranes for the cameras and everything. It was that big overhead shot, and I heard. I'm trying to think. It was Michael and Chris, sort of talking, and are we coming back? Aren't we coming back? And no, and they were really frightened. And I was just listening because I didn't have as much skin in the game as they did. Of course, I wanted the show to come back, but I was probably doing 3 episodes a year at that point, and doing other projects. They were doing 22, and so I remember. But it was the salmon were running. So the salmon at that point, and if people have seen that, they sort of jump up. And there were just thousands of them. I mean, it was spectacular, catching the light. And finally, I listened to the two of them going on about this. And finally, I said, "Look, guys, you're coming back. You're coming. What do you know? You're coming back." And they were trying to be polite, like, "What do you know? You're just a guest star. What do you know? Yeah, you're recurring, but what do you know? Well, how do you know we're coming back?" I said, "Chris, I know we're coming back because look, even the salmon are jumping out of the river to get a look at Stargate SG-1." And they laughed,
and you were right,
and I was right. But actually, it's funny. What I thought you were going to talk about, which when we finished that, I remember, because we had to get wet and everything. We finished that. I ended up riding back with Chris in his car, and he had a wonderful bottle of scotch. And there was a driver. He was,
right.
We weren't, and this was, and to be fair, this was not a, this was a separate driver. It wasn't, part of the Stargate crew, which is completely illegal.
Yeah, this was a separate hire.
Formal sort of thing. We had some nice scotch, and it was, so it was quite a satisfying day that day. Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on and sharing these memories. It's always fun to have you back, whether we focus on Stargate specifically or not. But I have truly admired you for the work that you've done and for your constitution as a performer and as a human being. And it's always great to have you on the show. And
yes.
I hope to have you back again in the future.
Yeah, well, we have to finish the conversation.
Absolutely.
It's never. Anyway, thank you, David, and thank you all for watching and listening, and to be continued. Be well.
Thank you, Tony. You take care of yourself, sir.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Tony Amendola, everyone. Master Braid Tech from Stargate SG-1. I appreciate all of you for tuning in and for taking some time out of your Sunday with us. We have coming up next week a pre-recorded episode with Mr. Paul McGillion. So I'm going to be setting up a separate YouTube video where you'll be able to ask Paul questions underneath in the comments below, and I'll be getting to that to upload that in just a moment here. If you enjoy the show and you like what we do here, it would mean a great deal if you consider looking at some of our t-shirts. We offer t-shirts, tank tops, sweatshirts, and hoodies for all ages, as well as cups and other accessories in a variety of sizes and colors, including the famous Hammond of Texas mantra from Mr. Braytek himself over at dialthegate.com/merch. And we thank you so much for your support. And if you enjoyed this episode, please consider hitting that like button, share it with a friend, or subscribe for future live installments so you'll be able to see what's coming up next. I think that's all that we have for you this week. My thanks so much to producer Linda Gategabber Fury, as well as my moderating team, Summer, Tracy, Keith, Jeremy, Reese, and Anthony. And big thanks to Frederick Marcoux at Concepts Web. He is our web developer on Dial the Gate. And also a thank you to Jeremy Heiner, our webmaster, who keeps the site up to date. My name is David Reed. Thanks again so much to Tony Amendola for joining us. You're watching Dial the Gate. We'll see you next week with an episode with Paul McGillion. See you on the other side.